Please go ahead and tell us your name.
My name is Bobbo Grunberg.
Tell me something wonderful and fantastic about being in your 60s.
Wonderful and fantastic. The best part of being 60 is there's a part that you just don't have to care anymore in terms of how, about expectations. You sort of done your thing, you're comfortable in your place, and you don't have to worry about presentation or what people expect, and so there's sort of a letting go that's nice.
Do you feel like you're old?
Interesting. You turn 30, you turn 40, you turn 50, and you always say it never feels any different. But when 60 happened, just that day, not that I felt any different, but in my head, there was something that was different. And it was that I'm not young anymore. Not that I'm old, but I'm certainly not young. And I'm not.
What makes you happy?
This makes me happy. New things do make me happy. Because they're novel, they're exciting, to get the juices flowing and you don't know what's next. That I do. So I've always liked risk and change and new things. But family makes me happy. My daughters, my wife. I know that's sort of cliche, but that's where I think genuine happiness, a smile, just comes alive naturally. So that would be what makes me happy. New
So-
things in family.
Simpler things maybe than maybe 10, 20 years ago, even 30 years ago, perhaps.
I was working harder, though I was working harder to become something. I think my work is harder now because I think I'm better at what I do. And so because I'm better, I think more comes my way. I put my 10,000 hours in times 3, so you become an expert in an area, and so I think harder things come my way. But I worked harder back when I was younger, and so as far as happiness, when there used to be breaks, like a vacation, I was really happy because I was working really hard at trying to make things go. When something good happened in my family, that made me really happy. Watching my kids, do a sport or those things made me happy. Visiting family out in New York or in California, that made me happy. But the personal stuff was more about being in the moment and making a three-pointer or having a great tennis shot, or those were the things that made me happy. Making things happen.
Okay. In thinking of the end of your life, I would imagine your perspectives have changed over the years. Death, dying.
I deal with that all the time in my work, but as a kid, I remember worrying about it, not all the time, but what if? Who'd come to my funeral? Those thoughts you have. Nobody would show, everyone would show, or this would be a better time to do it, maybe someone would show. And as far as, I don't want to die where I'm a burden. And I just know that like with health costs, 90% or 80% of health costs in our society is helping people in the last 6 months of life. That's a really costly way to stay alive when you're 1/3 of what you used to be, or 80% of what you used to be, or you're on your last leg. So as far as dying, I'd like one day just to wake up and die and be done with it. But As far as worrying about it, I don't worry about it. I really don't. I'm not preoccupied with my death. I do worry about the burden it would leave others, you know, in terms of my responsibility financially or how it would affect people. But if I were, again, I don't worry about death. I'm not so much like Woody Allen, where everything's about death. Though you know, my father's 92, I worry about his death, and I'm preoccupied more with that.
Mm-hmm.
But my own, you know, I really don't get wrapped up in that, and I'm a pretty, I guess, you know, I was saying fortunate before, but you know, I think people have different styles, and I'm deep but not dark. And so I'm not the type of guy that is morbid and gets wrapped up in. I get wrapped up in my existential plight, you know. So, you know, who I am and how I fit into the world. But when it's done, it's done, and I sort of that's the piece of it. In the big scheme of things, it's a very small piece. And so, I'm important, but I'm pretty unimportant.
So you think about it, but you don't dwell on it. I mean,
I'm not a dweller. You know, I think that's also, it's a sort of a style of a person. I was trying to say that before. I don't obsess about things a whole lot. But you know what? That's changed. That's become more of a 60s thing. I think I get wrapped up in my head more than I used to about those kinds of things, and then I feel, shit, I don't want to go there. And I really try to let it go. But I do get wrapped up in, you know, in the past year, 2, 3, you know, that, you know, I guess that questions I talk about and think about more, you know, you do get wrapped up with it more. But I really try to let it go. I can't have an effect on it except about how I lead my life now. So I try to do good things as best I can, though I don't, you know, there's some things I shouldn't be doing.
why are we here? What's the meaning of life?
I ask people that, you know, who am I and why are we here? I have no idea. You know, I do believe there's things we just don't know. And we pretend and we create stories about it. I just know that I am here and I'm alive. And why are we here? My God, that's a question, you know, that I can't even begin to answer intelligently. Do you know why we're here?
It just seems that a lot of people live their life that way, just questioning why they are here. So that's why I pose the question.
I ask, who am I a lot, and how do I fit into the world? But I've never asked, honestly, you know, why am I here on this earth? You know, I guess there's times you think, you know, is it that I have a task to do or a place to fill or
A purpose.
a purpose, and I think with intent, you know, with intention, that's your purpose. You know, there's that, what is it, in the back of cars, what was it, I forget what it is. It's like happiness is unintended, or make random happiness, or something.
Oh, acts of random kindness or something.
Yeah, I hate that. You know, act of random you know, I think there's intention, and you intend to bring a good act. And if you're waiting for random stuff all the time, it's not going to come your way. You know, it might come your way, may, but I think that's where that's your purpose. And so, why am I here? I'm here to be me and to be doing this thing with Tracy and Dennis today, and just be as real as I can be. That's my intention now. Why this came about? It's a confluence of lots of different things, and that's exciting. You know, so there's always new things. I had no idea this was going to happen. That's a good example of, you know, if you're open to these things and you leave yourself available and you allow it and not worry about it, put yourself in some good places.
So, do you feel that was it harder for you turning 60? I mean, some people have a hard time with 50, some people have a hard time with 40. Someone the other day said 21 was like just awful for them.
None of them really mattered. 60 did. You know, I was saying it became a thoughtful thing.
Right.
And when I said 60, that sounded old. It's not young. 50, I didn't care. You know, oh God, 50, you know, half a century, oh, that's cool.
Exactly.
But I didn't feel like I was old. When 60 happened, you know, from the night and then the birthday, and we went to New York and we were doing some really cool things, you know, saw Mormons, it was a great show. But then the idea of being 60 seemed old, and just the word doesn't seem, it's not young. And you know what? One of the hardest parts about being 60 is that you aren't, not that being noticed matters, but you're walking down the street, people could care less if they see you or not. You know, when you're 20 or 30, you're walking up, people are looking at you. I'm invisible at 60. You know, you're walking down and people aren't really, you're older. You're part of that group.
Part of that group, but shouldn't people still respect us and want to talk to us and want to hear what we have to say? Did it bother you? Does it bother you that people aren't, that you're invisible in a way?
Well, there's you know, the ego in me likes being noticed and all that kind of stuff. But really, it's dismissed. If I were to be in a bar, you know, you grew up going to bars and going drinking, going out with, and people don't even give you a glance. And I think, you know, you look a certain age, you get to a certain point, and you're older. And there's a feedback loop that you're just, you know, the world around you isn't responding the same way. But that's in certain environments. You know, why at 60 am I going to a bar? You know, you know, I'm just saying that to be looking to be recognized in that environment, yeah, if I was at a conference, I'd be recognized. But I'm just saying, walking down the street, there is something about being 60, and maybe it's cultural about how the world tells us all that stuff, but it's not young. I don't like saying the word old too much or too frequently, but it's not young. And I don't feel young.
You don't feel young. What do you see when you look in the mirror? Do you see old, or do you see you but an older you, or do you see
older you? I see hair gone away. I see marks on my face that weren't there, and things growing, and yes, that just it has shifted a lot.
Do you see
The essence is there.
Okay.
I'm still there, and I'm not disturbed by it. You know, it was interesting. I was with an 18-year-old young lady, and she's going through a real difficult time, and we're having this session, and she's really concerned and really upset, and she wouldn't say why. And then she got in the car with her mother, and then the next time I saw them, and her mother said, you know, she was really concerned about that mark on your face. And she thought that you were gonna die. You know, that you had cancer. And I went, no, it's just you know, it's not a big deal. But to her, that was a big deal. But to me, you know, I look at that and I go, you know, what am I gonna do about that? You know, it's not that I don't care so much, but didn't have it at 50, and didn't have it at 40. And and the aches and the pains and bone on bone and those kinds of things, and hair growing out of the middle of your forehead, and things coming out of your ears, you know. Those are, you know, that's when I was a kid, I was with Grandma and Grandpa, those were things they had. And I got them.
Does it mean we're a youth-obsessed society? I mean, looks, what they do, they can take over the world now, it's their turn, kind of?
We are. You know, when I was 10, my father didn't dress like me. He dressed like a dad, you know, and he had a suit on and the white shirt and the wingtip shoes. He went to work. Now you walk down the street and dads look like the 5-year-old kid and the grandpa. And so, but they're all dressing like the 5-year-old kid with the shorts and the long shirt, you know, and so we are a youth-obsessed society, and the distinctions and the boundaries are less clear. And I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing, it's just a really different thing.
Let them take over. Let's see what they can do.
Let's see what those 5-year-olds can do that have boogers come out of their nose. You know, they'll be just fine. When I think of old, I think of people that are old, and grandmas and grandpas, and old cars and vintage things. My only wish is that when I'm older, and sort of like this, that I have some grace.
Okay. Just gonna angle. Let's go to the next one. Can you angle? Can you hold it that way? Just yeah. Just get the reflection on that. That's whacking
gotcha.
the lens. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Okay. And go ahead. Sorry.
So at what age would that be, that grandma, what age is old? Now that you're 60, what age is old?
Oh, that's about 120.
Right,
Yeah.
it's not, right, I know.
It's
Now we're middle aged.
Now we're middle aged. But no. Well, probably middle age. I think 40 to 65 is middle age. You know, I'm on the verge of getting that Social Security thing. I think that will be a mind trip. Because you feed that your whole life. You know, I'll never get that. You know, right on the verge of, oh, wow. Government's giving money for being an old person. And that was made at a time when people could not survive. And now to be getting it and been feeding the trough forever, it's that's old. Or let's say tested time. You weathered the storm. Good old Bob Dylan song, Shelter from the Storm.
What do you think when you hear the word retire?
Not me. As I said, I always want to travel, and I'd love the opportunities to travel and do that with my wife. That'd be great. But I want to do this for years to come, just not at the pace I do it. So the full weeks, and you know, I don't even want to say how many hours I work a week, but a lot. If I could do that, you know, 80% less when I'm retired, that would be retired for me. But be able to come in here and see some people. I was just at a conference with, and he's the guy who I have the most respect for. He's 80-some years old. He's a psychiatrist, and he sees 5 people a week. And people from all over the world, you know, he's well known, he's famous. And they call him to see him, and he can pick and choose who he sees. And he sees these interesting people, and that's what's great about this job. You learn about all these different people. It's all new all the time. And that I would love to do at 80. Old and keep on doing this.
So retirement means obviously different things to different people. So in your parents' age, when you were growing up, what was their image of the
Well,
word
my
retirement?
dad worked till he was like about 85, 87.
Okay.
And he was a pretty vibrant man. And I liked that in him. But the problem he had is he really had nothing else. So for me, like the sports was always something else I could do if I ran or since those things I can't do anymore, I need to have other things in my life. And they need to be active and good for the heart, good for the soul. So I would like to be able to work, but I still need to stay active in a healthy way. And that would be a nice piece. So retired would be work 5 hours a week and be involved with something intellectual, do some activities. But if I was 5 hours a week and in my underwear at home eating cereal, that would be pretty obscene. That wouldn't be graceful.
That's not your image of retirement?
No, well, once a week.
Okay. Now I just need to get that image out of my head.
Yeah, I know, that was a bad one. I'm sorry.
Are there more important, are there more important things, sorry, I'm not saying it the way I want to say it. What things are more important to you now than they were, say, 20 years ago?
God, that's a tough one. I guess, you know, I'm unfortunately thinking money. And not money for me, money for those when I'm not here. And I never thought much like that. I wasn't a really big planner. You know, I always did well, but spent a lot. And we did a lot of things. And so, as I get older and I'm working, you know, and there's debt and there's all this stuff, I'm not going to have a lot to give. And if I were to die today, that would really bother me for my wife, though she works. But that would be upsetting. And so I worry about that. Money. I think I worry more about money now that I'm older than I did when I was younger. I didn't worry about money when I was younger.
Because now I think that we're older, there's less future than there is past, so we're gonna need money to.
Right, and I see that happening with my folks. You know, they did well, but, you know, they're living in old age, and they don't have the money they used to, and they can't, you know, they talk about that. And that's that thing with grace again, you know, you don't like to see the world, that's when the world gets small. And when the world gets small, that gets scary. And money, you know, money, I'm more preoccupied with money than I've ever been, in terms of if I'm obsessed about stuff since I've been older. I guess that's one thing. But I don't have no regrets about spending the way I spent. I wouldn't redo it.
Is that one of the reasons you continue to work so much? I mean, you love what you do, but is money a huge factor in your worries?
If I couldn't do this in 30 days, you know, and I had to reinvent myself to make money, but if I lost my job and didn't have the income I have today, that would be a sad sight, you know, in terms of what's been saved and assets that you have, I need to sustain my job. And if, you know, that's when people lose it, it's a big deal. And people don't, well, I don't have the piggy bank, you know, like I did, because I lost a lot not so long ago. You know, there was some security there that just got wiped out. Lost a lot of money. And you know, and I think that happened to a lot of people, and people are just, you know, coming back around, or I don't know how people are doing, but money's hard.
Kind of no way around not having money. We all need money. So again, as we get older, it's
I was much more careless about it when I was 20 or 30.
well, you had your parents taking care of you and they provided for you. So, but now, yeah.
Well, not then, but going through, you know, they paid for my college. I paid for my kids' colleges, and I'm still paying that. You know, it's, but they're on their own. They did well, my kids. They're paying their own bills.
One more question. In thinking of the end of your life, how has your perspective changed on thinking about death, your own death and dying, and your thoughts on that?
When I think of the end of my life, you know, and I guess I was speaking about it before, I know what I don't want to be. I don't want to be a burden, and I hope that I'm graceful. And I hope I'm not a prick and a curmudgeon and a bother. And so when I look at the end of my life, I don't have regrets. It's not like I have a bucket list, and there's not things that I'm looking to do to get in before the day's up. It's just when those days happen, I want to be a decent human being and going about my day that's not a burden.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.